All right. So first of all, I'm sorry for forcing you to watch this video to see the solutions, but I really wanted to comment on a couple of things that you wouldn't hear or see if you just looked at the answers. So describe the distribution for political party. If we're talking about political party, I didn't say anything about gender, so that is the marginal distribution. Now, you don't have to give decimals. You could give percentages instead, of course. You could even do counts. You could have just said 48, 76, 43. You didn't even have to give percentages, but percentages are better, or are nicer. Now describe the conditional distribution of political party for females. Now we just look at the females. When you're giving percentages or when you're doing things like this, it sounds a little ridiculous, but you really need to show write down the fractions, what you divided to get those percentages. So, for example, let me address this here in a little bit, but always show your work even though you probably don't want to and you don't think you need to. So this would be 21 out of 98. And the reason is they want to see what numbers you want that you're dividing. That's what they want to see, okay, for 21%. Democrat, Republican, Independent. Another example is there an association? Yes, there's an association. Why? Because 51% of females, that was right here, are Democrat, whereas only 32% of males are Democrat, and I showed that right here. Now, you didn't have to just comment on Democrat. You could have shown Republicans, or you could have shown Independent, or you could have done all three of them and talk about how they're all different. But you really just need to illustrate one difference. But if they see, I think, if they just see this 51% and this 32% and they don't know where those percentages came from, you can lose points. Now, I didn't need to show it here. I had it shown here and I had it shown up there. As long as you showed it somewhere in your solution, you don't need to write it down again. Okay, but that's the show your work. And then these are the specific values. Because 55% is not the same as 32%, therefore there is an association between gender and political party. Okay? Segmented bar graph, pretty straightforward. For females, I did Republican was 21%, so I tried to get it as close to 21% as I could. Independent was 23%, so I went back from 100 to 23%. So what's left over has got to be in the middle. And then I did the same for males. I had males here, and then I had to do some calculations there. This is good. Is it needed? I don't always know exactly what's needed, but perhaps they would want you to illustrate these percentages and how you got them. This is showing your work. That's important. Okay? So we got two different distributions, males and females, number of shoes. We got some histograms, so you can see the number of shoes by females is much larger than the number of shoes by males typically, as you might suspect, right? So it says to compare the distributions using appropriate specific measures. So specific measures, I mean, don't just say these are centered around 10 and these are centered around 5. I'm saying use specific measures, mean, median, stuff like that. And then I also said use appropriate. These distributions are both strongly skewed to the right. So you should not be using the mean and the median, the mean and the standard deviation. So I said the median number of shoes for females, 12, is greater than the median number of shoes for males, 4. Okay? What's important? I used the appropriate measure. I did not use the mean. I use context, and I use a comparison word. Okay? These are important points, guys. If you said the mean number of shoes, if you said the mean for females is 14.7 and the mean for males is 5.7, you're going to lose everything. You didn't use the appropriate measure. You didn't use a comparison word. You just said females is this and males is this. You didn't compare them. And you didn't say anything about shoes, the number of shoes. So on this thing, even though your answer you could argue is right, you're not going to get any of the points for it. Okay? So please understand that. For spread, now here's one thing that I do know they do, because I've graded the AP test. As long as you have context somewhere, they don't expect you to keep repeating it. So notice for spread, I didn't use context. I just said the IQR for females is 13 is greater than the IQR for males, which was 4. Okay, so I didn't put context here, but that's okay because I had context up above. Okay, as long as you end up writing a whole paragraph if you do it everywhere, and you can do it everywhere if you want. Shape, I said both distributions are unimodal skewed right. Now some of you might think that this one is bimodal, and I probably would not mark that wrong on a test, but I don't think that's a significant little bump. I'm just going to say unimodal skewed right. This one's definitely unimodal skewed right. Don't need a comparison word there. Outliers. Looks like we might have some outliers here. I wasn't sure. And I don't know, here, maybe not. I think it would be okay on an AP test to kind of just say, looks like there's a couple outliers for females and no outliers for men. That would probably be all right. But I wanted to be careful. I wanted to, and you should always be careful as well. Outliers are classified by the upper fence. So I calculated the upper fence for the girls, and that was about 39.5. And for guys, it was about 13. So it looks like there's several outliers for both groups. So I just said both males and females seem to have multiple outliers on the high number of shoes. So I didn't even check for lower bound outliers. There's not going to be any lower bound. Okay? There's going to be a lot of points here, and if you're not careful how you word it, you can lose a lot of points. Now this last one, I just wanted to talk about showing your work. It is always assumed that you have to show your work. Now I keep saying show your work. I don't need to say that. If I don't say this, you still need to show your work. Always, always on AP. Okay? So for the mean, you have to show your work. So what do you have to do? Well, I just typed it in the calculator and wrote it down. Well, that doesn't matter. You need to show something. So a good thing to show would be just show the formula. You'll get credit for showing your work if you just give the formula. So the median, again, I just put this in my calculator. Since it was a decimal, I knew that it must be halfway between 2 points, so I figured out which 2 points it was between so I could show my work. But even if you said something as little as the middle score, perhaps you will get credit for showing your work. But don't just leave a naked answer. You're never going to get it on AP. Well, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes you will, but you don't know the few times when you will. IQR, show your work. I doubled up here. Give this you're okay. Give this you're okay. One of the two, and the answer. Standard deviation, I definitely didn't do this by hand. So for sure, the way to show your work for this is to just write down that formula. Okay? So just copy down the formula and then use your calculator to write down the answer. Lower fence, work, answer. Does this have any outliers in the negative direction? No, because the minimum value, which was 54, there's a couple 54s. The minimum value 54 is greater than the lower fence, therefore it's not an outlier. And then create the box plot. Okay? Scale, label, graph, of course, and a title. Guys, you just need to, those people that got the 54, I'd like to think that they knew more than that 54 indicates, but I didn't show my work here. Points off. I didn't show my work here. I didn't show this. I didn't show this. I didn't explain this. I didn't give a title. I didn't, there's a ton of points that you're going to lose, and you might say, well, that's not fair. I agree with you. But the AP requires a certain amount of nonsense, and you have to comply. Okay? Good luck.